my kick returner, but this was a smart kid who is now going to college to be a doctor. Okay, they didn't, could have easily turned the wrong way and become an American-born terrorist. Didn't happen. Why? Because he had good structure.
But I'm with you. And that's my thing, is I believe at the high school level, I'm not talking about colleges, I'm not talking about places where it's your job to run successful football programs. I'm talking about at the high school level where these guys are just, I'm like I said, my son's a freshman. He's never played organized sport. He's being introduced to it right now. He's learning how to tackle, learning how to put on a uniform for the first time, And so you have such, to me, your job is different. Your job is totally different at that level. Your job is to mold children. Like you said, you don't even look at him as a good running back first. You look at him as he's a good kid, or I know this about him and that about him. Oh, yeah, he happens to play running back on my team. Because your job to me, the football, that's ancillary, man. And I'm not saying that you got to parent these kids, because that's a hard thing to do. But I believe that you have a much higher calling when you're a high school football coach, a high school baseball, basketball, whatever. Football just happens to be what we're talking about right now. But I believe that that's truly your responsibility. And then what happens on the football field, that's completely secondary after that, But anyways, my whole point with all of that, to segue around, we ended up spending a chunk of time talking about it, but that's where it starts. And it ends up in this messed up environment where you go, man, how come we got so many selfish athletes? How many we got so many thugs out here? We got so many guys committing crimes, and they don't respect women. They don't respect authority. They don't respect this and that. This is where it all comes from and works its way up, is from what they see as a kid. And then they end up in the NFL causing problems. But I want to talk, let's segue. Instead of just talking about the NFL, we're not talking about any of the off-the-field stuff this week, except I do want to ask your thoughts, because we haven't talked since it happened, about Roger Goodell's press conference the other day. Because to me, we talked a little on Tuesday, and then even more things came out. And I'm going to stick to what I said. I have got a feeling that I still think that the momentum is not done. I think there's more that's going to end up. There's people that smell blood in the water when it comes to Goodell. But that was that was the biggest farce of a press conference ever the other day.
Yeah, I want to go beyond that. It's not just Goodell. It's the whole policy. It's the whole cabal of the owners. And, this Biscotti press conference, too, it really bothered me because, he's trying to say things, and I had to watch it just like I watched Goodell's press conference. And, I've met both guys, so, I had to watch Goodell's press conference about 3 times. And I have a great deal of respect for the man up until this point. I might not have always agreed with everything he did or said, but I thought he was, I felt he had high standards. I still think he has high standards. I don't think he's, I think on this one he did miss the ball. He didn't get it right, and he admitted to that, which he should, be applauded for. But I think now we're taking the wrong direction with this, and I'm not saying that it's wrong to hire people to help you craft a better policy, but you're expecting guys to do things, players, that they've never had to do because no one ever stood up to them and told them not to do it. And this is the problem. When you have guys that you pump an education into, and some of them do get smart, okay? Some of them do actually pay attention in class and go to their classes and pass and get a degree, okay? They don't just go to play football. It's really a tough situation because you're trying to balance the needs of the players with what's right. Okay, and we all know that what's right is not to beat your kid or punch your wife or fiance out in an elevator. Okay, we know that's not proper behavior. Okay, that's not acceptable behavior. If you or I did it, Jerry, we'd be in jail.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's be honest. Okay, guys who are professional athletes, they get a pass, rightfully so. Usually it's not. This is one case where it's not. It should not be. Nobody should get a pass for knocking your wife out or beating your son to draw blood. Okay, these things are wrong. But by the same token, why does the government need to be involved? The game should be policing itself. These rules should have been in place long ago. Not Goodell has to take a look at a policy and reorganize things. That's where the problem is.
Oh, I know, but just in general, the whole do you think you should lose your job? No, because I admitted I made a mistake. I'm just saying, how many... I'm curious. I bet you Josh Gordon admitted that he made a mistake. 1,000 other guys admitted. They stood right in front of that desk and said, yeah, Mr. Goodell, I made a mistake. I promise I'll never do it again. All right, no problem. You're out for the season. You're out for 4 games. You're out for 6 games. The fact is that he's in a no-win situation there, even if he wasn't doing anything wrong. But, it's hard to sit there at a press conference where you're supposed to be explaining everything and you explain nothing, and you actually come out of it looking more ignorant than you were before, because everybody's sitting around going, you didn't tell us anything, and you showed up 15 minutes late, but you didn't tell us anything in this whole thing. All we know is that some guy doesn't want to go on the elevator. Other than that, we didn't learn a whole lot. That was I got to give Howard Stern credit, by the way. That was one of those really cool moments that you just, what the hell just happened? Is that guy screaming, "Don't take me to the elevator"? But that was a welcome distraction to that thing, by the way. But other than that, I mean, it was ridiculous. And I said, you know what? Conference had been done by a guy in a suit who said, we're announcing the resignation of Roger Goodell and we messed up and we're going to fix it. There would have been nothing wrong with that speech, because you would have actually done some changes that are going to be made, and I think I love it. All the options are on the table. To me, short of resignation, the only end over the thing that he's in charge of, the discipline. He wants to be the czar. He wants to be the god of all that stuff. He doesn't want to take it out of his hands, but I don't think he's going to have any choice. But I still think that there's a Scud missile coming for him, if we're using battle terms. I believe there's a shot across the bow that's going to hit him in the near future, and it's going to end it for him. I don't think Roger Goodell survives the end of this football season. I think enough people want him out that they'll find enough smoking guns, and there'll just be one more story after another that comes out. And you brought up the other thing, Biscotti, before we move on. That's a trip. If you've looked at the details of that, I was going to mention it on today's show anyway. You look at the details of that. First, Ray Rice told his side of the story. I tend to believe a lot of what the Ravens and the press conference yesterday with Biscotti, I tend to believe a lot of what they said, because he very quickly, what the NFL doesn't do, transparency. Now, I know the Ravens monkeyed around. They are as guilty as the NFL on not taking care of business with Ray Rice and covering this thing up. But what I'm talking about, and this is why it's so funny, they didn't rush to no press conferences with some of the other stuff that went on. But the minute Ray Rice went on TV and had his people saying, "Oh man, they're offering me a job. They're telling me to keep my mouth shut and don't mess up their little game, and they're trying to blackmail me and offer me a bribe and a job." And then Biscotti laid out his phone and said, "Look, here's my text messages. Here's the exact conversation." And when you read the text messages and then compare it to what Outside the Lines reported, there is a difference. The wording is changed. There is a difference in what the text messages that the Ravens sent and the ones that Ray Rice and his people or reported to Outside the Lines. I really do believe that there's, you can just see in all of these stories who's working the agenda, and every one of them's got an agenda, all of them.
Right, that's true, and that's where the problem is. Nobody wants to take responsibility for something wrong that happened here. That's what the problem is. And this is a big problem with what's going on, and this is why you're right. I don't think Goodell. I do think he gets through this year, but I think it happens in the off season next year. And I think what it is the owners come to him and they say, this is enough, and we need you to start to groom a successor. Somebody who's going to do what we say, because let's face it, the commissioner does work for the owners, and it doesn't matter how much authority they give him. They could easily, they could easily say, you know what, you're not doing this job that we want you to do.
And I think there's a lot of you'll see. I think there's a couple more shots to come across the bow, some new stuff that hasn't come out because there's a lot of venom from former players that want Goodell out of there, that feel that they or teammates or friends of theirs have been shafted over the years, or fellow players, that I just think that when that kind of momentum's against you, you can't stop it. And I think it's reached a point where people are digging out stories now. Like you saw how quickly they dug out more things about football. And then last week, they've dug out stories. Half the stories reported in the last week are crimes that happened in May and June and July. And people are just now caring enough to go look up the police reports because now they smell the chum in the water. And now they're looking for more ammunition. And I think that there's a big one that hasn't come out yet that I think will be the one that teeters him. Maybe it takes all the way till Super Bowl week, and then that's when the proof will come out. The secret videotape of Roger Goodell being handed the Ray Rice video. There's gonna be some damning piece of evidence that makes the owners go, we can't protect you any longer. So we'll have to see, man. And but I wanted to mention that too because I saw this press conference here where they were, but I'm like, man, the Ravens can quickly come out and try to throw Ray Rice under the bus afterwards. Meanwhile, they weren't real quick to come out in a lot of these other months before that too. And I just love whether it's Goodell, Biscotti, all of them. I think one of my favorite, sarcastically, lines in all of this is, well, he was telling us the truth, but he didn't tell us the truth. When we saw the video, we just couldn't believe how violent it was. Like, I don't understand what is misinterpreted about I hit my wife across the face so hard that she fell and knocked herself out on the wall. Like, I don't understand what about that sentence was difficult for you to understand. Then you watched the video and said, wait a minute. That's not what he told us happened. What do you think he told you happened? You think he told you that he gave her a love tap and it got blown out of proportion? And Biscotti, he tried to slickly add the line in his press conference. Yeah, we allowed ourselves to believe what we wanted to believe about Ray Rice. We wanted to believe that this was not as bad as it sounded. We wanted to believe his version of the story. And I'm like, well, of course you did, because you wanted to keep him on the field. You wanted to believe that he could run for another 1,000 yards is what you wanted to believe.
So he would be very, very happy. He would be very, very happy if that never happened again. Okay, that's the thing right there. And I agree with what LG said in the chat room just now. Where you say you can understand how Goodell would be misled by Rice. Rice has never been in trouble. Comes from a good background, New Rochelle, New York, not far from where I grew up in the Bronx. Mother was a teacher, special ed teacher, in fact. So where did this come from? Obviously, this is a learned behavior, and he didn't get it from home. He got it from being in society. So that's what we have to stop as a society. We have to stop domestic abuse as a society. We have to stop hitting our kids who don't deserve it. Okay, the ones that do deserve it, there's a limit to how far you can go before it's corporal punishment. We have to, we have to empower people to understand that they can't behave this way and get away with it, that there are consequences, especially when you are somebody who is in the limelight.
I'll tell you, man, I've had some people send me messages we've talked about. This is my last comment on that. I'm just saying, if I've had some people say that money is the reason why, Janae Palmer, now Rice, sticks behind Ray Rice. And I keep telling people, it's got to be love. It's got to be some crazy form of love, because if it was just about money, she would bail. Because I was telling people, I said, imagine how paid she could get if she sued the Ravens organization, if she sued the NFL. She could sue the Ravens for trotting her out there at that press conference and making the victim take the blame for things. And I mean, you look at all this, I'm like, no, she can't be trying to get paid, because if she was trying to get paid, she could get paid off the NFL on this one. They would write her a 7-figure check to go away tomorrow. But anyways, let's get off of that. Let's segue, though, from the Ravens on the field now, as they came to Cleveland last week and came away with the last-minute victory against the Browns. The Browns played it good all the way to the end, but in the fourth quarter, the Ravens had another play